If my son ever stops funding your little lifestyle, you'll be back in a rental by Friday. So learn some respect. My mother-in-law, Vivian, said it loud enough to echo off the floor-to-ceiling windows of our Chicago penthouse. My husband, Jared, stood 2 feet away. He didn't drop his scotch. He didn't correct her. He just adjusted his cuffs, perfectly willing to let his family treat me like a gold digger if it made him look like a billionaire. I didn't argue. I didn't defend my career. I just picked up my coat and walked to the elevator. Leaving the party wasn't a surrender. It was the quiet cocking of a very legal gun. If you have ever walked away from a toxic family member in dead silence because you knew your next move would speak for itself, tell me where you are listening from. And let's get into it. The elevator doors slid shut at exactly 10:42 at night on our 5th wedding anniversary. I rode down 40 floors in silence. A caterer had tried to stop me near the foyer. "Natalie," he had whispered. "Should we still serve the cake?" I told him to serve it. Jared could have the cake. The guests. And the applause. I had a hired sedan waiting downstairs, sitting in the back of the car, watching the city lights blur past the tinted window. I didn't cry. I am a corporate counsel for a logistics firm. I spend my days tracking breached contracts and freezing rogue assets. When a system breaks, I don't weep. I audit the failure. I took out my phone. I didn't text my husband to ask why he let her humiliate me. Instead, I opened an old archived email thread from 8 months ago. It was a conversation between Jared and his older brother, Marcus. Marcus was a highly successful orthopedic surgeon. He was the golden child. He was everything Jared desperately wanted to be. I scrolled down to the middle of the chain. Marcus had written to us, offering to split Vivian's luxury living expenses right down the middle so Jared wouldn't carry the burden alone. I read Jared's response in the harsh glow of the screen. "I've got it covered. Mark, I take care of my own. Keep your money." He didn't have it covered. Jared was a mid-level sales manager. The penthouse we were standing in earlier tonight was purchased entirely through a trust fund left by my late father. But Jared had spent the last 5 years letting Vivian and Marcus believe he bought it. He needed them to believe he was the sole provider. Rejecting his brother's money wasn't about being a good son. It was about ego. He wanted to look like the wealthy patriarch who had finally surpassed the doctor in the family. The car merged onto the highway. The streetlights flickered across the leather seats. For years, I had tolerated Vivian's little jabs, the remarks about my clothes, the assumptions about my income. I had kept the peace because I thought marriage required compromise. I thought Jared's silence was just cowardice. I was wrong. His silence was a strategic choice. He was using my money and my reputation as props in a play he wrote for his brother. Vivian thought I was an ungrateful dependent. Jared allowed her to think it because correcting her would shatter the fragile, expensive persona he had built. If he wanted to play the self-made king, he was going to do it on his own dime. I locked my phone and looked out the dark window. I had an office to get to. My name was the only one on the trust documents. The freeze started at dawn. I walked into the lobby of my law firm at 7:15 the next morning. The Chicago skyline was still a flat, bruised gray outside the glass doors. The reception area was empty. The lights in the main hallway were only operating at half capacity. My paralegal, Sarah, was standing by the heavy commercial copier in the break room. She stopped sorting a massive stack of interrogatories when she saw me approaching. "You're in early, Natalie," she said, tapping the papers against the counter to align them. "Do you need the Miller deposition files? I can have them on your desk in 5 minutes." "Not right now, Sarah," I said, walking past her toward my corner office. "Just close my door behind me, please, and hold any calls for the next hour." She pulled the heavy glass door shut. The room went perfectly quiet, sealing out the hum of the ventilation system. I sat down at my mahogany desk. I did not turn on the overhead lights. I opened my laptop and deliberately bypassed the firm's secure intranet. I logged directly into the private wealth management portal for my personal trust. My father left me that account when I was 22. It wasn't the kind of endless, generational wealth that buys private jets. But it was absolute security. I had worked 70-hour weeks at this firm to pay off my own law school loans, dollar by dollar, just so I would never have to touch that principal. Every dollar inside that trust was a choice I made to protect my future family. Jared knew exactly what that money meant to me. He knew the discipline it took to leave it alone. I navigated to the primary balance page. The number on the screen was wrong. It wasn't drained completely, but it was visibly lighter. I pulled up the transaction history for the supplementary card I had issued to Jared 2 years ago for emergencies. $18,500. That was the exact deficit. That was the price of Jared's fake empire. I picked up the heavy desk phone and dialed the direct line to my portfolio manager. David. He answered on the second ring, his voice crisp and alert even at this hour. David. This is Natalie. I said. I need an immediate, unilateral freeze on my primary trust account. Stop all outgoing transfers. Cancel all recurring drafts. And terminate the supplementary card, ending in 419. I heard the rapid clicking of his mechanical keyboard. Done. David said. Are you expecting fraudulent activity from an outside vendor? No. I replied. I'm stopping an inside bleed. Understood, he said smoothly. The primary funds are locked down. The supplementary card will decline at any terminal worldwide as of this exact second. I hung up the receiver. I leaned back in my chair and looked out at the waking city. The sleek, heavy black card sitting in Vivian's expensive leather wallet was now just a useless piece of plastic. She just didn't know it yet. The physical trap was set. But I still needed to understand the mechanics of the theft. Sarah knocked gently on my glass door at exactly 9 in the morning. She walked in holding the Miller depositions and 2 cups of black coffee. I have the briefs for the afternoon partner meeting, she said, setting the files neatly on my desk. Do you need me to pull anything else from the archives? I need a personal favor. Sarah, I said, taking a sip of the coffee. Log into the Windsor Tower resident portal using my credentials. I need the itemized concierge ledger for my penthouse, going back 24 months. Print the entire history and bring it directly to me. She didn't ask questions. A good paralegal never does. 15 minutes later, she walked back in, handed me a thick stack of printed paper, and closed the door behind her. I sat back in my leather chair. My penthouse at Windsor Tower was a full-service luxury residence. It featured a premium lifestyle concierge desk designed for absolute convenience. Residents could book town cars, secure private dining reservations, or arrange in-home spa treatments by simply making a phone call to the lobby. The concierge handled the payment and added the cost to the monthly maintenance bill. On my bank statement, the charge only ever showed up under one vague vendor name, Windsor Tower Concierge and Management. For 5 years, I had been the one signing off on those monthly auto-pays. When you are a corporate counsel billing 70 hours a week, your eyes glaze over routine, recurring expenses. You see the name of your building, you see a total, and you assume it covers the doormen, the lobby upkeep, the security staff, and the water bill. You do not assume it covers your mother-in-law's luxury lifestyle. Jared knew that. He knew exactly how I scanned my statements on the 1st of every month. He had not hacked a mainframe. He had not forged a paper check. He had simply given Vivian the concierge authorization code and told her to put whatever she wanted on the house account. I uncapped a yellow highlighter. I started on the first page of the itemized ledger. February 9th. $450 for a private car service to a botanical garden charity event. Billed to the unit, May 22nd. $900 for a weekend retreat at a wellness center. Billed to the unit, October 12th. $380 for a champagne lunch with her friends. Billed to the unit. I highlighted 84 separate transactions across 24 months. When a family treats your hard-earned income like a public utility, the theft is not just financial, it is temporal. $18,500 was not just a number on a spreadsheet. It was 74 billable hours. It was late nights eating cold takeout at this exact desk. It was the anniversary trip to Costa Rica that Jared said we had to cancel because he was too slammed with quarterly sales reports. He had not been slammed. He had been busy buying his brother's respect with my exhaustion. I printed the corresponding bank receipts. I punched 3 holes into the paper. I placed every highlighted page into a thick, black binder. I put the binder into my briefcase and locked the brass clasp. I unlocked the door to the penthouse at 7:45 that evening. Jared was sitting on the leather sofa. He had a glass of expensive scotch resting on a stone coaster. The television was playing a golf tournament, but he muted it the moment I walked in. "You disappeared last night," he said, his tone dripping with practiced disappointment. I put my keys in the brass bowl by the door. I took a hired car home. "You made my mother cry." "Natalie." I stopped walking. I looked at him across the kitchen island. "Did I?" "She was just boasting about the penthouse." "You know how she gets. She likes to talk up my success to the family. You didn't have to storm out and humiliate me in front of Marcus." "I didn't storm out. I just left." "It's the same thing. You made me look like I can't control my own wife." He took a slow sip of his scotch. He was waiting for me to apologize. For 5 years, I had apologized to keep the peace. I had absorbed Vivian's insults because I thought a marriage required a shock absorber. Jared had learned to rely on that dynamic. He mistook my silence for compliance. Because people who never face consequences always assume you have forgiven them. "Marcus is talking about buying a summer house in Lake Geneva," Jared said, tracing the rim of his crystal glass. "He was asking if we were going to upgrade soon." I told him we were actively looking at properties on the water. "You told him we were buying another house," I had to say something. "He acts like that medical degree makes him the king of the family. I just need him to know I'm doing exactly as well as he is, by lying to him. It's not a lie. We have this place. I have this place." "Jared," he sighed. The heavy, put-upon sigh of a man dealing with an entirely unreasonable woman. "Don't start with the technicalities. Natalie, we're a team. What's yours is ours. That's how a real marriage works." I looked at the briefcase resting by my feet. The black binder was inside, holding 84 highlighted lies. "I'm sorry I didn't say goodbye to your brother last night," I said softly. "Just let it go," Jared replied, leaning back against the cushions. "We have the bank meeting on Thursday anyway to renew the trust paperwork. Let's just focus on that." "I am completely focused on it." He smiled. He turned the volume back up on the television. He thought he had won the argument. He thought he was the architect of a brilliant, wealthy life. He had no idea that I had already frozen the foundation. The hardest part of dismantling a life is the perfect silence required to do it properly. For 48 hours, I did not break a single plate. I did not raise my voice. I woke up on Wednesday morning, measured the coffee grounds exactly the way Jared liked, and poured him a mug. He took it without looking up from his phone. He was scrolling through luxury real estate listings in Lake Geneva, still playing the role of the wealthy investor for an audience of one. I sat across from him at the kitchen island. I watched him sip the coffee bought with my paycheck, in the penthouse secured by my father's trust. A month ago, I would have demanded a conversation. I would have laid out the bank statements, yelled until my throat hurt, and begged him to explain why he lied to his family. I did not do that. True maturity is not found in the loud arguments you win. It is found in the quiet, deliberate decisions you make when the other person thinks they have already beaten you. The bank called about the trust renewal, I said, setting my cup down. Jared didn't look up. Thursday at 11. I know. I have it in my calendar. My portfolio manager is putting us in the executive boardroom on the 50th floor. I continued, keeping my voice entirely level. He's arranging a catered espresso service. I was thinking, since we're meeting right downtown, we should invite Marcus and Vivian. That made him look up. Why? He asked. We can celebrate the renewal. There is that upscale steakhouse right next to the bank plaza. We can take them to lunch afterward. It might be nice for Marcus to see the executive side of the bank. I know he appreciates that kind of premium service. I watched the calculation happen behind his eyes. Jared had spent 5 years desperately trying to project an image of effortless wealth. The idea of hosting his highly successful older brother in a private, glass-walled banking suite, a room most people never get to see, was completely irresistible to him. He could sit at the head of a mahogany table, drink imported espresso, and pretend he owned the Chicago skyline. That's actually a great idea, Jared said. He smiled. A genuine, relaxed smile. I'll text Marcus right now. Mom will love it. He picked up his phone and started typing. He had no idea he was sending out the formal invitations to his own financial funeral. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, I left my law firm and walked 3 blocks to the bank plaza. I didn't want to handle the logistics over a phone call. I walked into the private wealth management lobby and sat down with David. David had managed my father's trust for 11 years. He knew exactly what the account meant, and he knew how I operated. The freeze is fully in place. Natalie, he said, tapping his keyboard. The supplementary card will decline at any terminal. The primary funds are locked down tight. I need the executive boardroom tomorrow at 11. I told him, and I need you to bring the signature authorization card for the account. The original one. David looked at me over his silver glasses. The original card only has your signature on it. Your husband is not an authorized signer on the principal trust. I know. I said, I need that document sitting in the exact middle of the table when we walk in. David didn't ask for family gossip. He just nodded. I will have it printed and waiting. And the espresso, bring the good espresso. I said, we are going to have guests. That evening, Vivian called. Jared put her on speakerphone while he was opening a bottle of red wine in the kitchen. She had already bought a new dress for the lunch. Marcus is taking a half day at the clinic just to come down, Vivian said. Her voice echoed sharply off the marble countertops. He has a dinner with the hospital board tomorrow night, so he's on a very tight schedule. Make sure your little meeting doesn't run long. Jared, it's just standard signatures. Mom, Jared said, pouring the wine. 15 minutes. Tops. Then we take you out. Good. And Natalie I was standing 5 feet away, wiping down the stove with a microfiber cloth. I'm here. Vivian, I assume you're dressing appropriately for tomorrow, she said. Marcus's colleagues often eat at that steakhouse. We can't have you looking like you just rolled out of a cubicle. Jared works too hard to maintain his reputation for you to drag it down. It was a blatant disrespect. Delivered casually over a Wednesday night glass of wine. Jared laughed softly. He did not defend me. He just took a sip of his Cabernet and waited for me to absorb the insult. Exactly like I had absorbed every other insult for half a decade. I kept wiping the stove. I let the silence stretch for 3 full seconds. My silence was not consent. It was preparation. I will wear the navy suit. Vivian, I said, I promise you won't be embarrassed. See that you do, she replied, and hung up. Jared carried his wine glass into the living room, completely satisfied. He had his brother coming to witness his fake empire. He had a wife who seemingly knew her place. He had the concierge account paying for his mother's luxury lifestyle. Everything was exactly where he wanted it. I walked into the home office and closed the door. I did not turn on the overhead light. I sat at my desk and opened my leather briefcase. The thick black binder was sitting inside. I ran my hand over the cover. It contained 84 transactions, $18,500 in stolen funds, and the absolute end of Jared's carefully constructed reality. I locked the briefcase. The stage was perfectly set. I arrived at the bank plaza at 10:45 on Thursday morning. The executive boardroom was on the 50th floor. It had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago River, a polished mahogany table, and absolute privacy. David had already set the catered espresso service on a silver buffet near the door, in the exact center of the table, resting under the recessed lighting. He had placed a single manila folder. At 10:52, the heavy glass doors opened. Jared walked in, leading his mother and his brother. Marcus was checking his silver watch. He had a hospital board dinner tonight and carried the impatient, rigid energy of an orthopedic surgeon who hated waiting for anyone. Vivian, however, was taking her time. She ran her hand over the leather backs of the chairs and looked out at the sprawling skyline. Completely enamored with the display of wealth, this is spectacular. Jared, Vivian said, her voice echoing in the quiet room. They certainly treat you well here. Jared smiled. He adjusted his tailored suit jacket and gestured for his mother and brother to sit near the window. Then, he walked over to where I was standing by the espresso machine. He picked up a small porcelain cup. He did not pour anything into it. He just held it, leaning in close so his family couldn't hear. I know you are still upset about the anniversary party, Jared whispered. His tone was smooth, dripping with the practiced patience of a manager handling a difficult employee. And I know you brought us up here to make some kind of point about your father's trust. But let's be smart. I didn't step back. I looked at the perfect knot of his silk tie. What does being smart look like? Jared, it looks like signing the renewal in 5 minutes, he said. If you do that, I will transfer $5,000 into your personal checking account by tomorrow morning. You can buy yourself something nice. Call it a peace offering. He tapped the rim of the empty cup against his thumb. But if you try to make a scene, he continued, his voice dropping a fraction of an inch. Think about where you are right now. You are a corporate counsel. Natalie, your law firm does business with this bank. If you throw a hysterical, emotional fit in front of an executive wealth manager, the only reputation you destroy is your own. You will look unhinged. I will just look like a man trying to calm his wife down. It was a brilliantly manipulative threat. He was using the very career he resented as a gag to ensure my silence. He was offering me a tiny fraction of my own stolen money just to keep his fake empire standing. I looked across the room. Vivian was pointing out a skyscraper to Marcus. Jared followed my gaze, entirely convinced he had won the negotiation. I am not going to throw a fit. Jared, I said quietly, I'm going to sit down, and we are going to look at the paperwork. He exhaled, completely satisfied. Good. Let's get this over with so I can take my family to lunch. He walked to the head of the mahogany table and sat down, looking exactly like the wealthy patriarch he was pretending to be. David carried a silver tablet and a very calm demeanor as he walked into the room at exactly 11 o'clock. He stood at the far end of the mahogany table. Good morning, David said. I have the updated trust documents ready on the system. I just need the primary signature. And we should verify the status of the supplementary card before you leave today. Vivian smiled. She opened her designer purse, pulled out the heavy black card, and tossed it onto the polished wood. It slid a few inches and stopped near David. Jared covers all of this, Vivian said, waving her hand at David with total dismissal. Just run it. David didn't touch the card. He looked directly at me. Natalie, David said. The supplementary card ending in 419 was frozen at 7:15 yesterday morning. Shall I officially terminate it? Vivian frowned. She looked at the tablet. Frozen, Jared. Tell your man to fix his machine. Jared swallowed. The color drained out of his face in a single second. He looked at me, his jaw tight. Natalie, tell him it's a mistake. I didn't move. Terminate the card. David. David tapped his screen. Done. Then David reached forward. He opened the manila folder sitting in the exact center of the table. Inside was the original signature authorization document. It had one name printed in bold at the very top. Marcus was sitting right next to it. He is a surgeon. He reads charts and legal liability forms for a living. His eyes dropped to the open page. Marcus picked up the heavy cardstock. He read it once. He read it twice. Natalie's irrevocable trust. Marcus read aloud. The room went dead silent. Marcus looked up at his brother. Jared, your name isn't on this. I reached into my leather briefcase. I pulled out the thick black binder and slid it across the mahogany table. It stopped right in front of Marcus. 84 transactions. I said. $18,500. All hidden under building maintenance fees. Marcus opened the binder. He saw the yellow highlighter. He saw the spa weekends, the steakhouse dinners, the luxury car services. Jared stood up too fast. His knee hit the underside of the heavy table. The porcelain espresso cups rattled violently against their silver saucers. He reached across the wood to grab the binder, but Marcus pulled it out of his reach. Jared's hand hung in the empty air. Trembling, "You told me you bought the penthouse," Marcus said. His voice was dangerously quiet. "You told me you were taking care of Mom. Have you been stealing your wife's inheritance just to show off to me?" Jared didn't apologize. He didn't look at me at all. He looked desperately at his older brother, the man he had spent his whole life trying to beat. "Mark, come on," Jared pleaded. His voice lost all its executive authority. It sounded thin, re-eddy, and frantic. "It's marital property. It's just a cash flow strategy. I take care of Mom. You know I step up. We're a family. You don't understand how much pressure I'm under." Marcus dropped the binder back onto the table. "You're a fraud." "Jared." Vivian stared at the canceled black card sitting uselessly on the wood. She looked at her golden child, exposed and trembling. She looked at the brother who had just crushed him. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. She had spent 5 years treating me like a gold digger, and she was now staring at the absolute proof that she had been living on my charity. I stood up. I buttoned my navy suit jacket. "The meeting is over," I said. "Enjoy your lunch." It took 4 days for the lawyers to draft the postnuptial agreement. Jared signed all 62 pages on a Tuesday afternoon. He relinquished all legal claims to the trust, the penthouse, and my future earnings. He agreed to a strict repayment schedule for the $18,500, which is now deducted directly from his monthly sales commissions. He also started attending mandatory behavioral therapy sessions twice a week. Vivian lost her building access. Her name was permanently removed from the Windsor Tower Concierge Registry. She is still a grandmother, and she is allowed to visit her grandson. When she comes over on alternating Sundays, she doesn't need my permission to hug him or read him a book on the rug. I do not use my child as a weapon to settle adult debts, but she waits in the downstairs lobby until I personally approve her entry. And she pays for her own town car to get there. Jared sleeps in the guest bedroom at the far end of the hall. We are attempting to navigate a trial reconciliation. But the air in the penthouse is different now. The black supplementary card sits in the brass bowl by the front door. I cut it in half with heavy kitchen shears the afternoon we returned from the bank. I haven't thrown the pieces away. Every morning at 7:15, I reach into that bowl for my keys, and my fingers brush against the jagged plastic when Jared tells me he deposited his paycheck or that he covered the grocery delivery for the week. I don't just nod and smile anymore. I walk into my office. I open my laptop, and I verify the ledger. I have my money, and I have my boundaries. But the woman who believed her husband's word was enough is gone. A black card can buy a billionaire's lifestyle for a few years, but it can never buy the integrity of the man holding it. I know exactly what you are screaming at your screen right now. You are sitting there asking, why didn't she just hand him divorce papers right there in the boardroom? Why is he still living in the guest room after lying and stealing from her for 2 years? It is easy to judge from the outside. But when you are inside a marriage, navigating a toxic family dynamic, you fall victim to the slot machine effect. You don't stay silent for 5 years because you are weak. You stay because every once in a while, they give you a winning pull. A quiet Wednesday evening, opening a bottle of wine. A weekend where nobody insults your career. You get addicted to those tiny, random payouts of normal behavior. You keep pulling the lever, absorbing the quiet disrespect, hoping that if you just keep the peace long enough, you will finally hit the jackpot of a genuine, supportive family. Natalie didn't speak up because she was paying a daily tax for the illusion of stability. But look at what she did when that illusion broke. She didn't throw plates. She executed a masterclass in quiet leverage. First, she used the ledger bypass. She didn't just accept the broad, vague categories on her bank statement. She went directly to the source, the building's concierge desk, and found exactly how the theft was being camouflaged. She secured the data before he could hide it. Second, she executed a silent freeze. Most people find out they are being used and immediately confront the thief in a rage. Natalie locked down the trust fund and terminated the card before Jared even knew he was caught. She secured her perimeter before she ever fired a shot. Finally, she built an ego trap. She didn't scream at Jared. She let him invite his highly successful brother, Marcus, to the bank. She knew Jared's entire motivation was looking like a self-made billionaire in front of the brother he idolized. By putting that signature card in the middle of the mahogany table, Natalie ensured that Jared had to dismantle his own fake empire with his own hands, in front of the one person he desperately wanted to impress. It wasn't just about exposing the theft. It was about destroying the specific delusion he bought with her money. She traded her silence for absolute authority. Your peace of mind is worth more than anyone else's fragile pride. If you have ever had to set a financial boundary that permanently changed your family dynamic, I want to hear how you handled it. Leave a comment below with where you are listening from. And please subscribe to join me for the next story.